Have you ever thought about this scene from Easter? I'm gonna read this to you one more time. And what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes. We're not gonna have them on the screen. I want you to close your eyes, and I can tell if your eyes are closed. I ain't afraid to point you out. I was youth pastor for like 8 years. I always point them kids out. Hey, put your phone away. Open your eyes, close your eyes, put your hand up, sit down. I ain't afraid. But I'm gonna read this passage to you, and I just want you to take in the details. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen." It's a Sunday morning. A group of women are visiting the tomb of Jesus. They're coming to anoint his body with spices. In this group was Jesus' mother, Mary. Also some women who had followed him and believed in him. And I think we have to consider that this walk to the tomb was a walk of sorrow. Most of you have been here. It's just 2 days after the tragedy, and the grief is fresh and raging. This morning in Jerusalem, the temperature was 70 degrees at dawn. Would have been the same almost 2,000 years ago. 70 degrees, a beautiful time of day. Birds are chirping. The sun is rising, and there's that smell of spring in the air. The dew rising off the ground. Have you seen this sight before? It's a beautiful sight. But they didn't notice any of that because they were heartbroken. It's hard to notice the beautiful things when you are suffering. But this story doesn't end as we expect it to. The suffering doesn't stick, at least not in the same way that we are used to. Something happens in this story that is unique in history and in ancient literature and even in mythology or sacred texts from other religions. This ending doesn't seem to fit the tone of the narrative. The Savior, the one sent by God, willingly surrenders his life for the good of others. But then there is no act of defiance against the powers that be. There's no war of vengeance. There's no army that comes to destroy the evil villain. These are the endings that we want. These are the endings we write in all of our stories. We write stories where good defeats evil using brute force and might and strength, and evil is vanquished for a time until a new villain comes. And that cycle repeats itself over and over and over again. We write these stories, and then they're in all of our favorite stories. It's Star Wars, it's Harry Potter, it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's the Lord of the Rings, it's all of the stories we write. We write these stories because they represent life. You win some, you lose some. And we hope to see ourselves as the hero of our own story. The hero of our own story where we get the promotion, or we get the education, or we have the successful kids, or the cute wife, or the big house. And as problems arise, we'll fight them off, and hopefully at the end of the day, we will call ourselves a success story. Maybe leave some money to the kids and have them say nice things about us when we pass away. But that's not the ending of this story. Because this story is not a story that gives us the ending that we would write. It's not a story that gives us the ending that we would want. It's the story that gives us the ending that we need. All of us are here because we crave a better story. You see the fractures in the world. You know that things aren't right. You know that things are broken. The superhero story never pans out the way you want it to. It never plays out in life because there's a breakup or an illness or a financial struggle. There's a wound in a family that's never healed, a child who makes poor decisions, an addiction, a foreclosure, a divorce, a betrayal, a death, a dismissal, a disappointment. And all of us, what we want is something to restore it. Something to fix it, someone to heal it. And that never comes because that healing and restoration and fixing of the problem, it's up to us to do the work, but we are too confused and lost and hopeless and worn out and tired and old and broke and discouraged to know even where to start. We're so overwhelmed, it feels like we are walking aimlessly to a tomb, expecting the worst, expecting the same old story. But he is risen. He is risen. And what that means is that there is another story. A new ending is possible. The disorder and chaos and cruelty and frustration and anguish is not the final say. The women believed it. And the Bible says that Jesus appeared to over 500 people resurrected. And these early Christians, most of them former Jews, were so convinced of the truth of Jesus' resurrection that they changed all of their behavior and all of their religious customs that their ancestors held on to even in times of incredible persecution. And all these Christians would face death and brutality because of their own beliefs. They were so convinced of the fact of resurrection that they endured hardship and persecution and death in Jesus' name. This is not just recorded in the Bible, not just in the scriptures, but the sacrifice and willingness and courage and bravery are recorded by scores of Roman historians, authors, poets, and political figures. These first of the faithful were willing to give it all because they believed in the power of resurrection. But not just standing in solidarity because they believed a dead man came back to life, but also because of what he taught and what he represented. The ethic that Jesus introduced to the world was like anything anyone had ever heard before. It was a revolution. When Jesus gave his most famous sermon, the Sermon on the Mount, he said two things that were scandalous and ultimately got him killed. He said the phrase, "You've heard it said, but I tell you." You've heard it said, but I tell you. And he says this 5 times. You've heard it said, but I tell you. For example, you've heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you. And in saying this, you've heard it said, but I tell you. He was challenging the religious customs of the day. Your religion tells you, but I tell you. Here is my word. And in saying this, he was calling himself the new authority of divine truth. But he also says the word kingdom 8 times in the Sermon on the Mount. And when Jesus says this, he's referencing the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven, which stands in contrast or opposition to the kingdom of this world, specifically the kingdom of Rome, which represents every kingdom since. In contrast, when Jesus says the word kingdom, kingdom of heaven, kingdom of God, he's standing in contrast to the kingdoms that we create, ruled by governments and power and money and greed and oppression. This new movement of God's kingdom was a movement of peace and kindness and hope that breaks into our world system and disrupts all the brokenness of the world and brings peace and restoration and equality and purpose and inclusion and love and holiness inspired by his goodness and love. This is the kingdom of God. And in making these two statements, and in these two phrases, Jesus disrupts the religious system of the day. And he disrupts the social and economic and political systems of the day. And he says, I am bringing a new way to believe. I am bringing a new way to live. I am bringing a new way to be human. It's a new story that ignores the noise of religion and politics and human desires and the affairs of this world and elevates love and mercy and kindness and goodness. An evidence of God's role in this new story. God's seal and stamp of approval is supplied when he is risen. When he is risen, God says, Jesus and this advancing kingdom cannot be restrained by the things that stand in opposition to it, even death itself, because death cannot restrain him and the grave cannot hold him. When the angels say he is risen, we understand that it means that there is a new story. We don't have to settle for the old way. The story, it doesn't end in tears. The story doesn't end with confusion or frustration or heartbreak or despair. In fact, the story doesn't end at all. It gives us a new beginning. He is risen. This means that we get a fresh start. It means there is something beyond us and greater than us that cuts through the chaos and brings hope even in small glimmers. Hope! Because he is risen. Hope peeking through when we see no other way. Big ways and small ways. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, when we had this egg, it was incredible. Just incredible. Maybe the biggest egg hunt or even event that we've ever had, and we've had some big ones. It's so big that when we were outside with the oldest age group, there was this, who was there? Okay. There was this big group of kids, and we were trying to get them to get in a circle around the grass area. And as we were giving instructions, there was just a lot of them. And it was hard for them to hear us. And when we were, saying move, someone thought we said, go ahead and pick up the eggs now. When you were 12 years old, would that have been you? So you had about 30% of the kids picking up eggs. And I'm like, no, stop. And the rule followers stayed. Who would be a rule follower? Yeah, not me. I would go get them eggs. So, okay, just go. Chase is like, it's too late. I'm like, okay. Well, here's what happened. There were many kids who got a lot of eggs and some kids who got no eggs. And I didn't realize this until I saw my dear friend Leah Turner with her little girl. Now, Leah's a saint. And her little girl certainly had been raised right, raised to know the Lord, but she was crying. And I said, why are you crying, little girl? And she kind of held out her hand and she had 2 eggs. 2. And, you got all these other kids, the rule breakers, they're carrying around bags of eggs. Bags. And, when you say, only take 5, they're like, 5 times 10. and so I was troubled because we don't ever want children or anyone to leave here sad because we got a new story, right? And so the first thing I did was I saw my son Zechariah and said, hey, go get Isaiah. Because I knew that Isaiah was in the egg hunt too. And, we just teach our kids to give. We're generous because that's how we experience Jesus. So I knew Isaiah. I probably have to buy him a skateboard or a bike or something. Or some Takis at least, right? He likes goldfish. But he would have given up his eggs to make her happy. But you know what happened? This is the coolest thing. Jenny Grimsley's little boys. They came over like, hey, take my eggs. Take mine. And Leah, she said, no. And I said, Leah, sister, when someone wants to give grace, you let them give it. Because when they give it, they're blessed by it. Mm-hmm. And so Jenny's little boy, he gives the egg, he smiles, he's like, I gave my eggs. I'm like, good job, man. And I said, God's gonna bless you. Well, then my son Micah, he's by the door and he says, Dad, there are some unhappy people. And I didn't like to hear that. I didn't like it. Especially because I saw so many children with just bags, eggs. And so I said to my friend Leah, I said, hey, good to see you, sister. I got to go inside. And I walk inside and I grab Eddie. And I said, hey, brother, we gotta share a message. And I said, hey, do you know why we're doing this today? Because God is generous. Because grace is good. Mm-hmm. And when we give generously, we experience the grace and love of God. And I said, hey, we got a whole bunch of kids with lots of eggs, but we got some kids with no eggs. And I didn't even have to ask. You know what happened? All these little ones start walking forward with baskets and handfuls of eggs. Take mine. Take mine. Take mine. And what happened was we had so many eggs. We have more eggs than kids without eggs. And so we were, okay, thank you for the egg. You can stop. We have got too many now. All these kids kept coming up. Take mine. Take mine. Take mine. Take my eggs. And we gave these eggs away, and we had some left. And so we started walking around, just giving these eggs out randomly. And I said, it's kind of like when Jesus multiplied the fish and loaves, right? Like, no one went away hungry. And as I was giving these eggs to these children, I said, generosity feels good, doesn't it? Giving grace feels good, doesn't it? It feels good. And one little boy, he said, can I get a couple eggs? He said, I think I gave too many away. And I said, okay, well, how many did you give? He said, I gave 3. And I said, well, you get 6. Because when you give, God blesses you. When you give, you get it back. We give because God is generous. When I got in my car, my friend Leah, she messaged me and she said, you know, Leah and I, we went on mission trips together. Dear soul. She messaged me, she said, when we were outside, I saw that look in your eye. So I came inside with my girls. and I heard you sharing the love of Jesus. And my girls heard that. We took them in the car, and she says, my husband and I were in tears because we got to share with them how their sadness and their tears wasn't the final story. That God used it to share his love with others. I'll never forget that. I will never forget that. And neither will they. And neither will you if you were there. And neither will the people who heard it and saw it. They won't forget it. He is risen. And that means that a crying little girl isn't the end of the story. This ethic of generosity and grace and giving and loving others, it wins. It wins. Now, I don't know how many high schools and fire departments and city halls and Rotary clubs, I don't know how many had egg hunts yesterday, but none of them had kids sharing their eggs with other kids. So everyone went away feeling blessed and loved. None of those places told kids that we give because of God's generosity and love. That's because in this world, what you win is fair and square. You earn everything you get. You have a right to all you have. You shouldn't be rewarded for just participating. We shouldn't give people things that they don't deserve. That's what the world thinks. They think that sharing is for the weak. They think in this world, in this system, since our objective is to be successful and to succeed, there's no value in generosity. There's no value in giving. There's no point to it. But he's risen. Do you hear me? He's risen. Now I'm going to say something you're going to hate. You ready? I love it. I love doing this. You're going to hate this. This is going to rock your world. Are you ready? Yeah. Grace is a participation trophy. Now everyone talking about how no one should get a participation trophy, but what did you do to get the love of God in your life? Was it because you were good enough? Skilled enough? Smart enough? Good looking enough? You practiced hard enough? No. You didn't do anything except say, okay. That's not a skill. That's not a skill. We don't do anything to deserve it. Nothing. But all of us get it equally because Jesus has decided to give it. He decided to give it. So we get to tell the world, hey, you got it wrong. Since he is risen, we all win. Since he is risen, we all win. All of us. And since we all win, then generosity, the generosity we show, this is when we become alive. Because it's his power coming through us. Do you hear me? Sunlight to a flower, water to a duckling, blue skies to a sparrow. It's the generosity that brings us to life. Because he is risen. He is risen, and that means that there is something beyond us and greater than us that cuts through the chaos and brings us hope. Now, I told you what this looks like in a practical way. How we advance this beautiful ethic of love and inclusion and generosity and kindness and peace But it is so much bigger than that. So much bigger. And I'm going to tell you why. But I have to burden you first. I need you to feel something with me. I want to tell you briefly about 10 people that have been in my life that have impacted me in an unforgettable way. Let's start with my dad, Bill Kyler, engineer. Funniest guy you ever met. Drug addict. Died March 29th, 1992 when I was 12. Heroin. Mike Kindred, also brilliant, artist. My first high school best buddy. Wendy, your best buddy too. Died at 27. Suicide. Wendy found him, Indian Point. Dan Swan, heart of gold, mile-wide personality. One of my first youth group kids, his dad is one of my bestest friends. He was killed by a random act of violence at 17 years old. DJ Merriman, a friend to everyone who met him, full of dreams, never met him. He died at age 17, but his death started a revival. A revival. I don't even know how God did this. Hundreds of kids came to know Jesus. I baptized his mom. Courtney and Alexis. Both of them faced a lifetime of feeling rejected and left out and faced severe depression and took their own lives. But you know what? We baptized them. Do you remember? Lisa Kyler, my sister, social justice warrior, musician, poet, suicide. Corey Stewart, another one of my youth group kids, spent some time here at Altar Church in the early days. Nicest kid. Had a little guy. Suicide. Colin, son of our dear friend Cindy. Full of life and energy and potential. And like me, we have this in common that we laughed. People laughed with us or at us. The peculiar laugh. Two small kids. Passed away this last week. Addiction. Our sweet Emily, smart, funny, biggest heart, smile for days, passed away from cancer this week. 39 years old, three-year-old little boy, incredible husband, Bill, who's here with us today. A full future ahead. This is a lot to take in. This list is a lot. It's been on my heart all week. Everyone under 40. Average age of 23 years old, one from cancer, one from a congenital birth defect, two from addiction, one from an act of violence, 5 from suicide. And when I think about this list, it breaks my heart. And I ask why? How? I can't make it make any sense. It's not fair. It's not. And you have your own list, don't you? Do you have your list? You got one too. We want a better story. We want a story where all these young souls live a happily ever after and we get to enjoy them into their old age. But we don't get that. We don't get it. And in a world where we write our own story, in a world without Luke 24, verse 6, the grief and sorrow and sadness and bitterness is all we have. And we may say things like, they're looking down on us, or they're guiding us, but we don't actually believe it because there is nothing else. It's just molecules. And the end is the end. Because without those three little words, in Luke 24, verse 6, death is just death. Tragedy is just tragedy. There is no hope. There is no restoration. There is never a new story. Just the old, ugly, painful story. But he is risen. So what we know to be true is that death is defeated. Death is defeated. Death is defeated. And King Jesus is returning to reclaim and perfect his kingdom. And those in him who believe in him will return with him. Bodies restored, pain healed, hearts renewed, tears wiped away, led by the servant king who comes proclaiming, behold, I make all things new. And Bill, my dad Bill, and Mike Kendrick, Dan Swan and DJ and Cortland and Alexis and Lisa Kyler, my sister, and Corey, Colin, and Emily. They return to us singing, I know what it means to be alive. I know what it means. I know what it means. Do you believe it? Do you believe? He is risen. And in him, they will be risen too. There's a better story. There's a better story. And it's yours to embrace. But it's going to change you. It's going to change you. He is risen. And that means there's a new ethic. There's a new way to love. There's a new hope. And by the power of God, we get to say to Jesus, if you walked out of that grave, I'm walking too.